ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us again for a wonderful podcast, Baltcast, on Baltic American Freedom League and all the issues that surround Baltic states and United States. Just a reminder, we're Baltic American Freedom League. We're a 501c3 nonprofit, and we're here to educate the public, educate Congress, and educate the U.S. State Department on affairs that deal with the Baltic states of Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. So once again, I have on here retired Lieutenant Colonel Kestutis Eidukonis, and today we're going to be talking about what happens just in case the Russians do decide to invade the Baltic states. So, Colonel, thank you for joining us.
Pleasure to be here.
So we talked about it last time that you were on the Baltcast of what the Russians would be doing, and it looks like Suwalki Gap it would be the location for them to start to isolate the Baltic states. Is that still kind of the easiest way for them to go about it strategically, or is there any other ways that they would go about it?
Yeah, the Suwalki Gap is a definite problem for the Baltic states and Poland, and for getting reinforcements to the Baltic states, because it's a very narrow corridor between Belarus and Kaliningrad, or Karaliaučiai, as the Lithuanians like to call it. And we like to call it, but yeah, it is a problem because of any. If anyone just studies the map a little, you can see where the forces would have to go through. Now, the Russians have made claims that the Baltic states might be next to be reincorporated back into their empire. So we have to take this seriously, and the Lithuanian governments, Latvian governments, and Estonian governments are taking this very seriously. The one of the biggest things that for an effective army to fight, they'd like to know that their loved ones are safe somewhere before they go off to battle, that they're not in danger, and they don't have to worry about them. So Lithuania is coming up with an evacuation plan to evacuate certain categories of non-combatants. The categories yet are still be decided, but they're obviously people who are, invalids or pensioners or something like that, who can't stay behind and protect themselves and help out in the war effort are in that category. So yeah, they have an evacuation plan we're working on, and the seriousness of this is very interesting because they're actually going to have a rehearsal of this evacuation plan with certain cities, not the whole country, obviously, but they will go through and do a test run of their mobilization and evacuation plans. So this is serious business, because you're looking at the map there, and there's the Suwalki Gap, and not only they have to worry about Lithuanians getting evacuated through that gap, but in case of war, it's in all probability that Estonia and Latvia will be simultaneously attacked by the Russians. Like they the way they entered into Ukraine, they would probably enter into these countries. They wouldn't. I don't think they'd go into just one individual country. They may. It's possible they'll go after Estonia first, but then you have to maintain this corridor for the evacuation of Estonian, Latvian, and Lithuanian non-combatants, citizens. So yeah, it's there. It's a serious problem, and they're working on it.
So if there were to be an evacuation, what would be ideal for Lithuanians, Latvians, Estonians to flee? Is it to Finland, or is that kind of escape the through the gap, or like what would be the ideal route? I mean, I guess there's no such thing as ideal in war, but
yeah, there's no ideal. They have the availability of air corridors first to get people out. They also have the availability of the land corridor, and there's a possibility of the sea corridor, although that's also because of Kaliningrad in jeopardy. So there's no real safe thing, but there are certain assumptions being made about the call in the military imminence of hostility indicators. What are those?
Right.
You know, when they start attacking your infrastructure, when they start an information war, when they start basically trying to get your internet down and all that other stuff. These are part of what they call imminence of hostility indicators. So they're assuming, and I think maybe wrongly, that they may have a lot of time to, or some time to get these things moving. It may move a lot faster than they think, or we may have that time, or we have that luxury to do that. And I think the evacuation or the start of an evacuation would seriously signal to Russia that Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia plan to fight. When you start implementing that plan, that means you're getting ready for a war.
Right. So I guess going back to some of the old images that I remember when the full-scale invasion started, you had the populace training with weapons, learning how to make Molotov cocktails. Is that something that's kind of in play as far as with the mobilization exercises?
Yeah, that's being talked about, and there's two schools of thought that exist. I think one is the Israeli-Swiss model, which means every citizen that can stays and fights. They're pretty much armed and everything else, but I don't think that model has been fleshed out in Lithuania yet. I think they're going in that direction. People can, if they're not physically fit to be, in the combat zone, they can always fly drones. They can make, camouflage netting. They can make Molotov cocktails, like you said. The seriousness of, defending the country is up to its citizens. And I think the citizens will be sending that signal, and they are sending that signal from Lithuania right now, that they are preparing to defend their country with everything available.
Well, that's good. The other thing that I think about with the evacuation type of plans when the bombs are coming down is like medical care, nursing care, doctor care. How would that, in case of invasion, how would that go down, and what are they planning on doing?
Yeah, the scenario is you can make good plans and proper plans and everything else, but the enemy always has a veto over your plans.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think you might have a week to do this or a month to do this, it may only come down that you're down to 24 hours to do something. So you have to prepare for the worst. There was an adage we used to use in the military, the rule of the 7 Ps. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but it's prior proper planning prevents piss poor performance. So that's what they got to plan for. You got to plan for the worst, expect the worst. Hopefully you'll get the best, but you'll have to settle for things in between, because you really can't control the situation. Like I said, the enemy always has a veto power on what you're going to do. But the thing is, the fact that you're doing this planning shows a lot of seriousness on defending the country, and we're pleased to see that. I think that's a thing that's very important for Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia to show that they are united. They do plan to help evacuate each other's citizens. I mean, if you look at the map, where are the people from Estonia going to go? Well, maybe they can go to Finland or cross the Baltic or something like that. But in all probability, the land corridor is Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and then into Poland. And then you got to do, what are you going to do with these people? So part of the planning is to also involve the Lithuanian community, the worldwide Lithuanian community, into how do you put these people up and everything else. They've already had some practice with Ukraine. They somebody in Switzerland said, we got a message one time, our NGO, our community, that, there are 100 Ukrainians at the train station and they have no place to stay. And where do you put them up? So people volunteered to take them in temporarily till they found housing and everything else available for them. So you got to take care of people. You're going to have people that are going to be evacuated with medical issues, from hospitals and everything else. You got to free up the hospitals in the country for war wounded and everything else. So you don't want to have people in those hospitals taking up space that's going to be needed for the fight.
Right.
A lot of planning and a lot of detail goes into these plans, and what I've seen of what Lithuania is planning to do, I'm very, very impressed, and they're into it, and they're taking this matter very, very, very seriously.
Yeah, I'm glad. I think that you need a plan for the worst case scenario. I think planning, like you said, the 7 Ps. I think it's critical to make sure that not caught with the pants down. Because I felt just like with the full scale invasion, they knew it was coming, but they weren't quite. It seemed like there was a lot of chaos. But I mean, I guess with the evacuation plan, it's more of a controlled type of chaos.
Yeah,
as you expect. We know what to expect from the Russian Federation, which is just to create as much soft targets, inflicting, stuff that we hold so dear that we wouldn't think that anybody that was civilized would do that type of attack or.
Based on Russian tactics right now, what we've seen in Ukraine, even the evacuation, unless it's being done in advance of hostilities, will be a problem. Lines of communication, communications in general. How do you decide where the safe quarters are, and also controlling any kind of panic where everybody just decides to get in their car and leave at once or something like that and head for the border, or which way are they going to head? Also, the possibility of having a fifth column in the country that's going to do disruption and misinformation. The opportunity for chaos is there. That's why the fact that they are going to exercise this plan is a good sign, because if properly done, these exercises can point out all the vulnerabilities, all the pitfalls, not all of them, but most of them, and you can plan for and adjust for it. And it gives the people doing this stuff a little practice in what can be expected when this kind of thing happens. It's a very interesting thing on these exercises that a lot of times you can do a lot of failures. I've participated in some of these things. I did one exercise one year participated in an exercise with Commander-in-Chief Atlantic, which was the Atlantic Fleet. And we had a bunch of reservists come in to be the exercisers, to do the traffic and everything else into the thing. And it was a holiday. But we all got to work and generated message traffic and all that other stuff and scenarios and everything else. And the regular guys in the Navy at that time decided that they'd take the weekend off, come in on Monday for the exercise. Well, when they came in for the exercise, instead of having maybe 20 messages, which would be the norm, they had hundreds of messages coming in, some of them conflicting and everything else. And they were overwhelmed. They basically, communications broke down and things were not going the way it should be. I thought I would be in a little trouble for that, but instead the admiral was very pleased. He said, "I'd rather find out about this during peacetime, during an exercise, than in the real scenario." So yeah, the purpose of these scenarios is not to go and, okay, this is going to go, everything's going to go smoothly. The purpose of these exercises is to infuse situations where problems occur and give the staff and the people involved in this practice in how to solve these problems in advance.
Yeah, let's break it down to as much possible, just to see where we can strengthen the weaknesses and know where we're strong at. I would say, any type of plan.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
it's and you know, no one's dying in the exercises, hopefully, but it's best now to reduce casualties this time.
Yeah, you know, it's war's not a pretty scenario, and I think if you left it to the Ukrainians, they would rather not be in a war. Definitely know that for a fact. But when it hits you and your choice is living under a regime that absolutely has no respect for human rights, and you are an enemy, you have to fight. There's no choice. I mean, when we talk about, you know, could the resistance have been better in World War II from Lithuania when the Russian troops in? Probably yes. The Finns resisted, and they got to maintain some of their independence. Now the question is, you know, is Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia a powerhouse? Yeah, they have a limited population, but with that population that they have, if they are well motivated and well prepared, and I think the Russians might think twice about invading.
Yeah, well, that would be good to make them think otherwise. Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
The Russians basically did not expect the Ukrainians to fight like they did. So that was, I think, if they knew now what they didn't know, they would not have done that invasion. Just my thought.
yeah, I you know, I hope maybe the theory of back about Japan not invading the United States, behind every blade of grass there's an American with a weapon. I hope that's the same thing with the Baltics. That behind every blade of grass is a Baltic, you know, man or woman that's going to defend the land away from any type of invasion.
Yeah, I think they're moving in that direction in Lithuania because, you know, the gun culture that we have in the United States is not there yet. And, you know, but the thing is, if you want to defend your country, there's no time to go to, you know, when hostilities are declared, you got to have your rifle by your bedside.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have time to go to some armory somewhere in the city and maybe draw your weapons. You may not have time for that. So you have to be prepared when, you know, to fight and to have a plan where to go to and where to rally, and what your plan are, and what your objectives are, what you're supposed to hold. All this has to be planned out in advance. And you know, it's kind of interesting because Germany is going to have a whole brigade of troops in Lithuania now. I don't know if people know this or not.
Yes.
But that is basically the brigade is a tripwire to discourage Russians from advancing, because the Germans would then be involved in the war. But the Russians have been making all kinds of provocations, you know, drones flying astray, things like that. They're probing, and they're checking our air defenses, they're checking our responses and everything else. So and if you listen to RT News in Russian, which I do to find out what they're thinking, as far as they're concerned, you know, Poland, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, they were all part of the Russian Empire, and these are traditional Russian lands because prior to 1918, they were part of the empire. So,
Yeah, and that's important for people to understand that the context of everything. Lost my train of thought, but drones they did get shot down over Latvia and Romania. So I think that's understandable that they're testing it, and everybody needs to know that. Okay. So you're going to DC next week.
not sure yet.
Okay.
I've got a few other things going on. So,
Gotcha. So next
Yeah.
week is the Ukraine Action Summit, and
Yeah, the Ukraine Action
you know,
Summit's coming up, and the Ukrainians have done a lot of great work. I've been pleased to work with them. They're very well organized. They know the issues very well. I've participated in a half a dozen of their groups. They go in there with all the facts. They know the facts sometimes better than the Congress people that they're presenting these facts to. They're very into the armaments and the budgets and what's out there and what's available. And the thing is, I think we have a political problem here in the United States because there are some people in the government that don't want Russia to lose. So by extension, that means the Ukrainians cannot win. And the misunderstanding that goes on in this country is, I think, basically based on the fact that people in the United States don't understand the way Russians think. Russians do not think the same way as we do. Their mentality, and especially Putin's mentality, who was trained by the KGB, they recognize terror as a legitimate weapon to use against people to keep them in line. They use it in their own country. Their troops are terrorized. Their troops are mistreated. Their soldiers are shot on the spot without any court martial, without any legal proceedings. The guy says, "I'm not going forward." The officer will pull out a gun and shoot him on the spot. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that only goes on supposedly in fiction. So they don't understand that mentality that the Russians have about war and maintaining order and discipline in their military. You got to understand that they think differently than we do. They don't. The only thing they understand is counterforce and counterforce, not counterterrorism, but counterforce. So the thing is that they have to be beaten on the front, and that's what the Ukrainians are doing. But they need the weapons to do it. They're supposed to have 14 new brigades armed, but they received weapons for only 4 of them so far. So how do you fight with one hand tied behind your back? And there was a little interesting clip by Timothy Snyder in front of the Helsinki Commission, and basically says, we're letting the Russians write the rules. They can bomb Ukraine, but in turn, we cannot. The Ukrainians cannot bomb Russia. When did that become a rule of law? The missiles are coming down on Kiev, but they can't come down on Moscow. So all of a sudden, Russia becomes a protected territory, and the battle zone has to be confined to Ukraine. Is that how does Ukraine win that battle when you can't go after, like I said earlier, the archer? You're trying to shoot down the arrows. You can't shoot down all the arrows. It's impossible. So the only solution is to take out the archer, and that's what they got to be given permission to do. I don't know where that situation goes.
And not only that, is that all these missile launchers that are on like a HIMARS type of situation on trucks, they have to be constantly moving, and that uses their diesel and their other fuel sources on shifting, creating a dilemma for them, because if they're just going to sit in a certain spot and not move, well, they're not going to be using the diesel, so they have to be strategic and, we got to move here, we got to move here. They see us, there's a drone over us, we got to move, we got to, I think it's kind of ridiculous, because even just the threat, I think, will hurt, harm them and use their resources. So
absolutely, the Ukrainians understand the Russians very well, and they're taking advantage of Russian weaknesses to go after them. The problem is we're not helping them enough to do this. And this is something, I think, in the Ukrainian summit that has to get across to Congress, and from Congress to our leaders who are in charge at this time, that Ukraine needs to be given the freedom to defend itself. And to defend itself, it needs to knock out those areas where these where these missiles are launched from. They have limited strike capability with their drones, and UAVs, they're on unmanned vehicles, unmanned flight vehicles, but they can't do the job as well as some of these cruise missiles and everything else can. Yeah, the cruise missiles have a range limit also, so they'll get the stuff that's close. But yeah, they got to take those bombers out. They got to take those cruise missiles out. They got to take those other missiles out. And most of these missiles are launched from the air or from the ships. So if Russia cannot launch those, they can't be blowing up power grids in Ukraine, and that's what they're doing. They're trying to terrorize the Ukrainian people into surrendering.
Absolutely. So Tuesday, we're going to be doing a live stream right here on the Balticast, and if you're available, Colonel, we'd love to have you on. Tuesday, Helsinki Commission is going to have a hearing, and we're going to be viewing it live through our Balticast and providing commentary. The topic is Russia's shadow war on NATO, and so the Helsinki Commission, which you just mentioned Timothy Snyder being on the other day, talk about Russian imperial thinking. I think it's important. So on Tuesday, for everyone that's out there, we'd love to have you on and just to kind of watch the live stream and give some commentary as well, see what our congressional, the congressmen and senators on that hearing are going to say, and from the panelists on there. So let me see who are the panelists with the Helsinki.
Okay, not a problem. Yeah, there is a lot of information warfare going on in Lithuania. I'm not familiar with that much with Latvia and Estonia, but in Lithuania, they're having their parliamentary elections coming up, and it's going to be, change of government or whatever. And there are parties out there that are basically saying Lithuania should get out of NATO, Lithuania should get out of the EU, Lithuania should make peace with Russia, and so that we don't get invaded again. And that's their platform. Believe it or not, there should be a ceasefire, and the Ukrainians should be made to give up some of their land and all that other stuff. So we're hearing that in the United States. Some Russian disinformation is also working very well in Lithuania too. So this is stuff we need to talk about.
Yeah, actually, one of the witnesses is Mr. Erkki Tori, who's the National Security Advisor to Estonia. Dr. Benjamin Schmidt, Senior Fellow, Department of Physics and Astronomy and Kleinman Center for Energy Policy at UPenn, and then Mr. Michael Weiss, Investigative Journalist and author, on Tuesday. So 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. West Coast. We're going to be live streaming that, and for everyone to jump in on there. Any final word, Colonel, before we close up?
No, we just got to hang in there and let Ukraine strike back. That's that's the main thing that we're trying to do. So thank you for your call, and thank you for everybody for who's watching and tuned in. And
thank you so much for
broadcast will be available. And also remember that I also represent Blue Yellow USA, and we need to do some fundraising so we can help out Ukraine by sending them. We got ambulances there, we got medics there. We're providing first aid, we're providing evacuations, we're providing supplies, drones and other things to Ukraine. And if we can get some help there too, would be much appreciated. I'm sure Conrad will post a link later on this thing. Yeah, but thank you everybody right now.
In the description. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Have a good Friday, everybody.
Bye-bye now.